You're listening to the Greek's Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Greek's Gridiron. I'm Ethan Haristadoulou, and today, it's been about 11 days since the last time we talked any sort of football here. Lots gone on, big move. You can notice I'm in a very different spot. Studio looks a little naked. We'll take care of that soon, but we got to get some conversation going. Training camp is officially underway. Everybody has reported. Teams are starting to show their cards a little bit with who is starting, who is not starting, what position battles are going on. So today we're diving in and we're taking a look at, of course, position battles around the league that you must keep your eyes on here. We're running through 7 different ones, so make sure you comment down below. Let me hear your thoughts on everyone that we discuss, but also if there's a position battle going on that maybe I don't talk about here, fire away. Let me hear about it in that comment section down below. But we'll start first with the Indianapolis Colts, who, as it currently stands, are trying to figure out who their quarterback one is going to be. And it's a battle between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, of course, being cast off by the New York Giants. And at this point right now, as somebody who grew up rooting for Indianapolis and my hopes not being extremely high for this season, this is the culmination of the Colts' inability to find a true replacement for Andrew Luck, who retired nearly 6 years ago. I believe in 1 month exactly, it'll be an exact 6 years since that retirement. And we are looking at a quarterback who, in Anthony Richardson, yes, very high ceiling, but extremely high risk involved as well. It's like the highs are very high, the lows are very low, completing just under 48% of his passes last season, the lowest number for a quarterback with a minimum of 250 passing attempts since Tim Tebow managed under 47, finishing the season in 2011 with 46.5. I'm not super high on this battle. Whether you're looking at the struggles from Anthony Richardson, from accuracy to taking care of himself to getting injured, there's just a lot for me to be worried about here. And then on the flip side of things, you're looking at Daniel Jones, 7 years on his resume. He's shown that he needs things to be going absolutely perfect around him for him to have competent football play happening. And with 2022 being his best season, going 15 touchdowns to 5 interceptions passing, with 7 rushing touchdowns to add on top of that, I just don't really know if I'm too high on the current quarterback situation in Indianapolis, and I'd be shocked to really hear that anyone is. And I mean, you look at that 2022 season that Daniel Jones had. Coincidentally, it just happens to be one of the best seasons that Saquon Barkley had with the New York Giants. Maybe you could give that to the rookie season, but that 2022 year was as close as you're going to get to it, if not better, if you want to argue that. I will say that there's also things that coincide with that quarterback battle that have me a little bit worried. There's a lot of changing going on with the interior of the offensive line. You're looking at Tanner Bortolini and Matt Gonsalves that are going to be taking over along the interior of the offensive line, as both Ryan Kelly and, of course, Will Fries departed this offseason. So there's a lot to look at with this Indianapolis team, from the quarterback battle itself to even just some of the guys up front that are going to be protecting him. I'm not too concerned about them, more so just I'm interested to see how things fare on the interior of that O-line. And if it's not good for two quarterbacks that I'm already concerned about with turnovers, accuracy issues, and whatever it may be, decision-making overall, that doesn't really help them. Thankfully, the skill groups are very talented in Indianapolis, from the wide receiver room featuring guys like Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell. I mean, you name it, they've got a pretty deep core of wide receivers. Tight end room, a lot of athletes, but also the recently drafted Ty Warren. I'm very excited to see how he fares coming out of Penn State. And then, of course, running back Jonathan Taylor, cannot forget about him. Someone that I anticipate is going to see a massive workload this season. I just don't know how I can get excited about this quarterback competition that they have in Indianapolis. I don't really think you're going to get good results either way. And maybe I'm being extremely pessimistic with it all, but when you're sitting here crossing your fingers for a quarterback who has struggled to stay on the football field, who has only played in 15 games going into his 3rd season now because of injury issues, and then on top of that, the quarterback that's working against him in that competition is a 7-year vet who, I mean, the amount of turnovers that he has in his career to this point is just, it's not good, to put it simply, and to keep it nice. there's no way I can be excited about this. If I had to make a pick as to who is going to win out this battle here, I would want to lean Anthony Richardson just because the ceiling with athleticism and what he could potentially bring to this Colts team, and also being a very high first-round selection by the current regime overseeing everything, it feels like you need Anthony Richardson to work out here, and you're hoping that veteran presence of Daniel Jones maybe pushes him a little bit further. He's saying all the right things as they work through the summer portion of this offseason as we're going through training camp early. I've heard some really good things coming from him at the podium, but I don't know how I can get excited by either one of these guys. And I mean, the first day of practice was not great. I believe we saw a near interception for Anthony Richardson, and then we saw a interception for Daniel Jones. It was either one way or the other, either or. You don't love to hear that coming out of day one of camp. It is just day one of camp, so there's not a lot to take away from that, but I just find it fitting for the current quarterback battle that we're seeing in Indianapolis that is what we're discussing here. We'll take a look now moving into a different team, but a similar battle. This time, though, for my wrestling fans, it's a fatal four-way competition for the Cleveland Browns right now at quarterback here. And there's, again, another team with a lot to take in right now. So Joe Flacco, assumed to be the starter of the four here, the seasoned veteran of the group, has found success in Kevin Stefanski's offense, but he has also struggled at times as well. You're looking at 17 interceptions thrown over the last 2 seasons of play. That's including his postseason run with the Cleveland Browns as well. So that being said, he's probably going to be the guy that wins this battle. You look at the rest of the quarterback room. Kenny Pickett. Obviously, you can criticize decision-making, his ability to process things as plays work themselves out, but he does have a 15-10 record as a starter in the NFL for whatever that's worth, and whether you want to credit that more to the Steelers than anything else. And their defense, I mean, that is a fair conversation to have. But when you're best known for how small your hand size is and the fact that you have to wear gloves, and I just would be shocked to see him stick around on this roster. It almost feels more like a camp body than anything else. I could be wrong, and maybe Kenny Pickett does end up sticking around, but the fact that you have 4 quarterbacks on the roster, 2 being draft selections, and they're not high draft selections, don't get me wrong. We're talking about 4th and 5th round selections here, if I'm remembering correctly. I can't remember where Dylan Gabriel went. I believe it was the 4th round. Maybe it was the 5th round pick. I'm forgetting, but regardless, there is a chance that maybe he sticks around, but he does kind of feel like an odd man out considering the recent draft capital invested into the position. And of course, that draft capital being Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. I will say, if Dylan Gabriel was not such a small quarterback in size, because he's obviously not your prototypical 6'3", 4', 5 guy that you'd want, 200 and something odd pounds, plus being the big man that he is, or that he's not rather, I would feel a lot better about him. I mean, you look at the numbers, how he fared playing for 3 different Power 5 schools and finding success at all of them. And I mean, FBS record holder with 63 total starts at the quarterback position here. The biggest issue really is just his size and if he's going to be able to withstand being a quarterback in the NFL. If that's your one gripe about him, I mean, I guess that's kind of a luxury of a complaint. We'll see how he fares, but I'm interested at the very least in how he does because he looked good in college. And then, of course, you have Shedeur Sanders, son of Deion Sanders, slipping all the way to the 5th round in this year's draft, and just what's going to happen with him. I don't know, but he doesn't quite boast the athleticism that his dad portrayed, obviously, during his time in the NFL, and reports are already surfacing that he might be behind Dylan Gabriel already, so this is one of the more interesting things because going through the draft process and how the draft played itself out, it almost kind of felt like the NFL was trying to make a statement with Shedeur Sanders and letting Deion Sanders know, and anyone coming up behind him, that just because your dad played in the NFL doesn't mean you're going to shoehorn your way into a top selection in this year's draft. Whether that's the case or not, I don't know, but there is definitely, it kind of felt that way to some extent here. On top of that, yes, very accurate quarterback, but the haters will say, check down Merchant. He's not really pushing the ball down the field, questioning his arm strength. There's a lot of that going on. It's a very mixed bag of what you're getting regarding Shedeur Sanders, depending on who you talk to. For me, I personally don't know enough. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a scout for him. I don't know exactly what he's going to bring to this Cleveland Browns team, so I'm interested in seeing how it plays out for him. But again, this is a 4-man competition as it currently stands with one guy who has a ton of experience in For what it's worth, during the highs that he did display a couple of years ago with Cleveland, I could see Joe Flacco winding up the starter here, and then he's being backed up by some combination of Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders and whoever's the 2 and the 3 in that situation. Remains to be seen, but I feel like Kenny Pickett, if I had to pick one guy to cut, feels somewhat like the odd man out because the fact that you have draft capital invested in the other 2 guys, and you would think that with the amount of attention that Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel are going to generate now because of the fact that you took Dylan Gabriel before taking Shedeur Sanders, who obviously has a microscope on him by a lot of people, you'd probably want to have those 2 guys at least in the fold, so we'll see. But as it stands right now, I'm leaning Joe Flacco more than anything else, and I think a lot of people seem to feel that way as well, taking first-team reps. It feels like it's going to be the Joe Flacco show this year, barring some massive jumping from Shedeur or Dylan Gabriel, or if Kenny Pickett just comes out of nowhere, but, who knows? Crazier things have happened. Moving away from the quarterbacks, though, we're going to flip to the defensive side things here. We're going to talk the Atlanta Falcons here because this is a team that going through the offseason and talking defensive rankings with the NFC South a few weeks ago, I'm very excited to see how Atlanta's defense looks this year, but I also really love the way that they identified a problem, and that was their pass rush, especially coming off the edge and addressing it. You look at the addition of Leonard Floyd, who they added during free agency, coupled with the 2 draft picks in Jalen Walker, and of course Michael Pierce as well. James Pierce Jr., That being said, I really do like the way this group is shaping up overall. How far we see them go remains to be seen, but as it stands, Leonard Floyd probably going to see starter-worthy reps. He's going to be the number 1 on one side or the other. It's more so a conversation of what do we see from the 2 first-round selections here? You look at Walker, you look at Pierce. They're 2 very different players overall. Walker, somebody that you can probably more comfortably drop back into coverage as a smaller guy, a little bit more speed and juice to his game, or just agility to his game here with the way he plays. And he's like the more versatile of the 2, where you look at Pierce, he's more of the guy that you expect to be just going after the quarterback, being aggressive, chasing after him, pinning his ears back and flying after him. So the combination of how these 3 work themselves out is one of those things that I find really fascinating because Leonard Floyd, yes, the last couple of seasons only playing around slightly above 50% of possible snaps. He hasn't really had to be like an every down or a 3 down type of guy, which is fair. He hasn't needed to considering the 2 teams he's played on and the rosters that he was working in. But prior to that, still productive when he was hitting roughly 80 to 90% of snaps or like high 80 percentage prior to the 2 years he's played last. I'm not too worried about him. He's great at sealing the edge off as well against the run. He should be a solid option. It really just comes down to does Jalen Walker or does Pierce maybe step above the other, and who takes the side opposite of him? Or maybe it's a rotation of all 3. That is the ultimate option here as well. There's a couple of different ways that Atlanta could really go about doing this. It's not you could look at it with Leonard Floyd's age going, maybe we don't want to thrust him into a 3 down guy. Maybe we want to keep him on the more limited snap count, and you're going through a rotation of Floyd, Walker, and Pierce. That's, of course, always an option as well. But this is one of those things that I'm really looking forward to seeing because you have 2 really good guys coming out of the draft from big name SEC schools who have gone up against elite talent that more than likely those tackles that they were going up against are guys that are going to find themselves in the NFL if they're not already there. And you're in a good spot. You're in a very good spot. But as far as who wins out, who takes over who, there's even the possibility that maybe we see Pierce and Walker as your 2 starters, and Floyd's just coming in off this, whether it's relieving one guy or the other, and he's just filling in on both sides. There's a number of ways that this could go, but it's one that I'm really excited to see here. Next one we'll flip back to the offense. We'll go all the way down south to Texas, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, for this one here, it's basically just a matter of who's taking over the bell cow role in Dallas. They've, for the most part, had a lead back for the last handful of seasons, going back to Tony Pollard. Of course, Rico Dowdle last season prior to Tony Pollard. It's been one of those things where you've had the lead back. You think of Zeke as well during his time there, and even prior to Zeke as well. Now, the list of guys that we're working with here, Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, and then, of course, a 5th-round selection in Jaden Blue. Now, when you look at Javonte Williams, hasn't quite been able to capture that magic of his rookie season after getting hurt. He missed most of the following season, and then after that, it's, you've seen some sparks and some flashes, but it feels like some of that burst that you saw from that very first initial season that had a lot of people really excited is not quite there anymore. Whether that comes back in more time remains to be seen, but as it currently stands right now, I'm kind of like 50-50 on Javonte Williams. For Miles Sanders, another free agent addition. It's been 3 years since he had that massive season for the Philadelphia Eagles, racking up 1,300 yards on the ground, obviously losing a position battle with Chuba Hubbard during his time in Carolina. This will be interesting to see if maybe a change of scenery does him well. This is someone that the real question, I guess, is, did Philadelphia's offensive line make him look better than he actually is? You also look at the offensive line issues that they've had in Carolina over the last few years, and it's not necessarily been the best situation in the world. So it's like you go from a really strong group of guys to a really not so strong group of guys. This is one of those, like, with the way Dallas is currently set up along the offensive line, you're definitely somewhere in between, maybe closer to Philadelphia than you are Carolina, and even that remains to be seen just because of how the offensive line has changed this offseason in Dallas. But I really like the addition of Miles Sanders. It's just a matter of, like, what was that 1,300-yard season in Philadelphia? Was it more so because of that O-line that they have there, or is it that's like the ceiling, and if you put him behind a fairly competent O-line, you could get something maybe close to that? And then, of course, the Jaden Blue addition, known for his explosive big run potential, amassed 730 yards playing wingman to Trey Wisner over at Texas. The concerns about his durability do exist, but this is one of those people that I think he's going to press both of these veterans for whether it's starting reps, rotational reps, whatever it may be. I definitely think there is a possibility that Blue finds some serious playing time going through his rookie season. Yes, he's just a 5th-round pick, but the way Dallas is currently set up right now, and this will kind of be my how I think it's going to sort of play out prediction, I guess you could say, it feels like we're looking at a potential committee backfield. Like, yes, Javonte Williams or Miles Sanders might be the lead guy, but whoever doesn't end up being the lead guy, I think, is splitting a significant enough amount of carries with Jaden Blue. And then there's also the real possibility that as we go down the road, Jaden Blue's probably got the freshest legs amongst these 3 guys here that we're discussing. I could see a real scenario where he starts to catch fire middle of the season, especially if the passing game is as potent as it should be. You obviously have Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb. They always put up numbers together. The addition of George Pickens is going to force defenses to have to be a little bit lighter on defense, and whoever the running back is going to benefit. If you have somebody like Jaden Blue who's able to rip those big runs and take advantage of lighter boxes that he might be seeing, there's a good chance he's pushing for some of those reps here. So I think we are going to ultimately see a bit of a combination of a committee type of running backfield out of the gate, because I don't really foresee Javonte Williams or Miles Sanders really being able to run away with the starting role or like a bell cow type of role. I think it's very much a committee backfield this year, but I do envision down the line as the season progresses, and especially as the passing game rounds into form, because for what it's worth, however you feel about Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, just a conversation of the Dallas Cowboys as a whole, they put up numbers. They do force defenses to respect their ability to throw the football. If things are going well, and it gets even better now that you have a guy opposite of CeeDee, like a George Pickens, I think Jaden Blue could maybe really find some success midpoint-ish of the season or so and maybe start running away with an actual starting role. And then you're looking at Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders working behind him. I definitely think it's a possibility down the line. Sticking offensively and sticking in Texas as well, we're going to take a look now at the Houston Texans offensive line, which is going through like a massive reshuffling at this point here. We've seen a lot of changes. There are 7 new faces along this offensive line as camp gets rolling right now in Houston. The big subtraction, of course, being left tackle Laramie Tunsil this offseason. You bring in Cam Robinson, obviously the assumed starter there at the left tackle spot. Another free agent addition you have is, of course, Lincoln Tomlinson as well. You go into the draft, you bring in an Ariante Ursary in the 2nd round. And then, of course, you have other guys that you brought in. I mean, Jake Andrews, Ed Ingram, those guys that probably not going to be starters, but filling out some of the depth along there. You also have a Trent Brown who's currently hurt as it currently stands, and how healthy he gets and how quickly he gets healthy, I guess, remains to be seen. And then there's other guys, of course, Juice Scruggs, Jarrett Patterson, Titus Howard, Blake Fisher. I don't want to sound like I'm going to take a victory lap here over the Houston Texans, but I do want to say that I find it rather interesting after saying that the Texans needed to address the offensive line last offseason, getting ripped to shreds by Texans fans. It's interesting to me that we are now in the current situation that we are with Houston. This was an offensive line that was a little bit suspect to me last season. There was clearly a severe lack of depth, and yes, I know injuries really got to the Texans a couple of seasons ago, but we saw what happened when guys started to go down. And we saw some struggles again this past season as well. So you're looking at a lot of change. And as far as I can tell, there's a lot of positions up for grabs right now along this entire offensive line. Like, yes, Cam Robinson's probably the assumed starter at left tackle, but there's also a real possibility that maybe Ariante Ursary jumps him. Like, Cam Robinson is not a perfect left tackle by any means. He struggled with a lot of penalties last season. And that was one of those things that kept like the New England Patriots away from wanting to get after him. And it's not like the New England Patriots are boasting the most impressive offensive line by any means. So he's not a perfect left tackle. Do I think he's a good stopgap option? Probably, but like you're filling big shoes with Laramie Tunsil there, and I will not entertain the conversation of, well, we got out of the Laramie Tunsil deal at the right time because his play is dropping off. Like, no, you don't just get rid of left tackles like that. I wildly disagree with that decision. If you think it's for the better, so be it. If there's something that I'm completely missing, I mean, you can let me know. But the fact that Houston just opted to move on from Laramie Tunsil was a really shocking move in my eyes, and I still think he's amongst the top third at minimum in the NFL, and he's definitely top 8 in my eyes as well. So like, I just don't really understand the move, but this is definitely a free-for-all. I think there's a really good possibility that we see a lot of different faces taking snaps throughout the entirety of training camp. Like, if it's not a massive rotation in the early portion of training camp for the Houston Texans, just trying to figure out who looks best where, I'd be pretty surprised. And it's one of those things that I'm concerned because I really like CJ Stroud. I really like what this offensive potential is as far as quarterback and skill group goes altogether. And I like what they did to address the wide receiver need because obviously the injury of Tank Dell being as devastating as it was, who knows when he's going to come back. And you really hope he's going to. We won't get into if at all, but you really hope he's going to be back, but you never really know when it's going to be, which is how gruesome that injury was. There's a lot to like about what they have done skill-wise. It's just this O-line has me really nervous right now as to what it's going to look like. And I don't sit here and think that you can look at too many of the guys on that O-line and go, this guy can't, or like absolutely in no way could lose their starting job. Like, I know that Blake Fisher was a second-round pick last year. I get that. Titus Howard being a first-round selection years ago and being solid the way he's played. And I know people were pretty impressed with like the combination of Jarrett Patterson and Juice Scruggs at varying points during the last couple of years. Like, and like Trent Brown, if you can get him to play football competently, but the motivation thing has been a large discussion for him throughout like the duration of his career. We'll see. I don't know. But as it currently stands right now, this is an interesting group to watch, and I'll be really intrigued as to who comes out a starter and who winds up with some pretty solid names on this group already as it stands, who winds up sitting on the bench for the Houston Texans. Next, we'll look at a wide receiver room, and I flirted with the idea of talking Patriots on this one here, but the reality is the room's not that entertaining. It's not really that exciting. It's like Stephon Diggs and everybody else. One wide receiver room that I'm really excited to see kind of play itself out as we go through training camp and once we eventually get the season rolling is the Green Bay Packers. You want to talk about one of the deepest wide receiver rooms in the NFL? It's definitely Green Bay. Now, last year, Jaden Reed, in my eyes, became your de facto number one. He wasn't supposed to be, but he exploded with the playmaking ability that he has, whether it was like through like designed trick plays and runs or obviously just catching the ball as well. He, in my eyes, is or should be at least, the number one for Green Bay. His versatility and what he's able to do with some of the play designing that we've seen from Matt LaFleur over there, I think he's your number one. Then, as far as the rest of the group goes, you, of course, have Matthew Golden they took in the first round coming from Texas. You have Christian Watson, who, like, I love the idea of Christian Watson. I think he has a big playability, and he's able to take two defenses. I believe he averaged over 21 yards per reception last season, if I'm remembering correctly. Like, big playability is there, but he can't stay healthy. And the nagging hamstring thing has just been, it's been a detriment to his career to this point here. And the question now is just like, we're reaching the point of, is it too late for him to move past these nagging injury issues and be the legit guy that they drafted Christian Watson to be a few years ago? Romeo Doubs, he is like the big splash play guy. And for me, it's one of those, just if he can stay healthy, stay out of trouble, because obviously last season, suspension, some concussions, muddied what should have been a really big season for him after a really strong showing the season prior. I love what he brings, and I think for him, going into year number 4 right now, this is his moment. Is this going to be a long-term, or is he going to be a long-term answer for this wide receiver room? I think out of every single guy that's in the wide receiver room currently right now, Romeo Doubs has like the biggest wow factor, highlight real play type of ability out of anyone here. And I love what he's able to do. He's shown those flashes. He's showing it so far in this early portion of camp from everything that I've been seeing and reading. So as it currently stands, he's a guy that I think is going to be jockeying for a starting role and getting a decent amount, at least, of snaps and targets coming his way this year. Then you look at some of the other guys, Dontavian Wicks, not a household name, but you know him if you're in Green Bay. He's been strong when Green Bay has needed him. And in the situations where Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs were missing games, Dontavian Wicks was a guy that it felt like Jordan Love over the last couple of seasons has been able to find when he's needed to. And I think that's the numbers speak for himself. For somebody who's not a starter and he just comes in and he starts in those necessary situations. I believe he only has 11 starts through his career, 9 touchdowns and just under 1,000 yards at 996. And that's for somebody, again, 11 starts in the 32 games that he's actually played. He's like all reliable for you. He's, again, not a household name outside of Green Bay, but if you're in Green Bay, you know Dontavian Wicks and you know he can be big for you in good spots when you need him. And then, of course, the Matthew Golden selection, as I already kind of mentioned here, and then Savion Williams as well. You have 2 selections here, a first-round wide receiver for the first time in 20-some-odd years that Green Bay has gone and done this. You cannot teach the type of speed that Matthew Golden brings to the table, and for what he's known for and what he's able to do at like the intermediate and deep levels of the football field. He is going to stretch defenses. From day one, I expect for him to be a starter. Absolutely. It might take him a little bit to really start to make an impact, but he should be stretching defenses from day number 1. He has that speed and that ability to get open downfield that you just quite can't teach unless you have that physical ability. And Savion Williams, 3rd round selection, probably not somebody, again, outside of Green Bay you're not really hearing about, but for me, I am a big traits guy, and I talk a lot about traits, especially when you're starting to get into those later rounds. Like once you hit day 2 and 3, traits, it is for me. You can't teach physical abilities. You can teach technical things. You can teach things like route running at the wide receiver position. And for me, 6'4", 222 pounds, under 4.5 speed with a 40 at 4.48. There's concern around his hands. Yes, there's a lot of scouts that seem to be concerned about it. If he can secure the ball, and he's able to get that football in his hands. Yes, route running probably needs to get a little bit crisper as well. Those are 2 big things that I read a lot about when it came to his scouting reports. Crisper routes, better, and he needs to do a better job of just maintaining focus, getting the football in his hands. That size-speed combination is so rare. And it's one of those things where with the way Jordan Love plays and the way he likes to throw the football, if you can get something good out of him, that's one of those like low key, like keep your eye on type of wide receivers. The wide receiver room is just so deep in Green Bay, and I could sit here and keep on going. Like you also have like McCole Hardman, who's there, who, yeah, he hasn't really done a ton over the last handful of seasons, but a burner guy, somebody that in a spot where you need to rest somebody else can come in and you can still have the ability to threaten the deep ball because of his speed and his ability there. But like, there's just a lot of depth in this entire wide receiver room. But if we're talking like who I think is going to actually start day number 1, it's probably the first 2 guys we discussed, Jayden Reed and Romeo Doubs. And then, of course, you have Matthew Golden in there. I think that's like your big 3 starting wide receivers. And then from there, it's a combination of Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, and then Savion Williams in some capacity. Now, there's a chance that maybe Christian Watson, if he's able to get himself healthy and get going again, maybe he overtakes somebody. But as it currently stands, again, the big playability that Romeo Doubs displays, he has awesome hands and this crazy ability to catch some circus catches. Matthew Golden with this, again, the physical ability that you just quite can't teach, and what Jayden Reed showed to me last year, and I'm sure he showed to the Green Bay Packers as well. Your starting 3 guys has got to be Jayden Reed, Doubs, and Matthew Golden. And then finally, we'll wrap this up here with some more running back discussion. As we take a look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, nothing is ever truly guaranteed when a new head coach is in the building here. And Jacksonville boasts a really intriguing group of running backs here because Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, and the fourth round selection, I believe. I didn't write it in my notes, but I think it was a fourth round selection, Bashal Tutin. This is one of the most interesting combinations of running backs around the league right now. Again, in a new situation with a new head coach type of deal. I think that there is a case to be made for any one of these three guys to steal the starting spot as a running back for this football team. Now, Travis Etienne obviously brought in initially during the Urban Meyer era as a guy that was supposed to be or was it before Urban Meyer? That feels so long ago. The point being, Travis Etienne was brought in to be a security blanket for Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, we lose Travis Etienne for a season due to injury. Next 3 years, he has a couple of strong seasons, and then last season, just not quite what it needed to be. And for what it's worth, the offense was a bit of a mess last season with everything that was going on last year in Jacksonville. But Tank Bigsby emerges last season and actually finished the season with more rushing attempts than Travis Etienne. Yes, Travis Etienne was like the de facto starter. He was running back one coming out of the gate of each and every single game, but Tank Bigsby was stealing reps from him every single week, especially when Travis Etienne missed a couple of games. You had some big performances leading into that and following that from Tank Bigsby, and there was a real conversation that maybe Tank Bigsby should be that guy and he should be the one to take over. And then here comes Bashal Tutin. Now, he is a wild card in my eyes, but again, I'm a big traits guy, especially when you get into those later rounds, and what he brings to the table coming out of Virginia Tech. He showed that he could handle the workload of a workhorse back if you need him to during his time there. Pass protection and decisiveness seem to be the two big things that come up a lot when you're reading scouting reports. But again, nothing that can't be taught or fixed with more playtime and good coaching. And then as far as the three running backs go, elite athleticism, and he is, in my eyes, the most athletic of the three that we're discussing here right now. Tank Bigsby, I think, made a really good case to potentially steal the RB1 title. But as for Bashal Tutin and where things are shaping up, I think that there is a good possibility. Again, kind of similar to the Cowboys thing. Maybe he's not running back one coming out of the gates, but you cannot deny what he can bring to the table. And if he can, again, get good in third down situations, because you're probably going to see a lot of him there. If he can get good in those situations, whether it's catching the football out of the backfield or if it's just pass protection, if need be, you could probably start to see him steal some reps. And there's actually a real scenario in my eyes where Travis Etienne might end up being the odd man out. I think at this current point here, with the way things kind of fell off for him last season and as Tank Bigsby started to overtake things, I think there's a chance that Etienne might be that guy that winds up losing a spot and maybe losing big time, where you see Tutin overtake him. You see maybe Tank Bigsby take the lead role. And then down the line as we go through the season, it's Tutin and Bigsby that are kind of battling back and forth for that lead back spot, and they're carrying a large weight of the rushing attempts. So we'll see what happens there, but do not sleep on him. And again, as it currently stands for me right now, if I was to pin a prediction on this one here, I think Tank Bigsby ends up winning the job. All bets are off with the running back room and just about anything if you're not already solidified as a starter for this team with a new head coach in tow with Liam Cohen. But there is a good chance that with what Tank Bigsby showed last year, the struggles from Travis Etienne, I think he might wind up being the lead back. And I think there's a chance that Etienne finds himself as running back 3 down the line if Tutin gets to the level that I think he can with that athletic ability. So we'll see how it plays out. But those are my thoughts. Those are just some of the big position battles that I'm looking at as we go through training camp and quickly approach the start of the 2025 NFL season. As I said at the beginning, comment down below. Let me hear from you all. Your thoughts, your opinions, battles you're looking forward to seeing play out in that comment section. But as always, if you made it to the end, greatly appreciate it. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.